So I took a look at the rookie centers played in their first year who were drafted in the first 3 rounds. So assuming that if you were a 5th round center and you played in the first season, things probably went really bad for your team. But this would be under the category of they meant to do it. They meant to draft you and put you right in. There are 7 examples since 2013. I wanted to include Travis Frederick in this. And just looking at their Pro Football Focus numbers from 1 to 100. Last year, Mason Cole was the only guy to be a full-time starting center, and his grade was a 50.9 for Arizona. Pat Elflein, 66.1. There are 2 guys who are over 80. Cody Whitehair, as we know from Chicago, is a very good player, and Travis Frederick. The rest are kind of all over the map. Ryan Kelly was a first-round pick, 72. Graham Glasgow was a 53. He was in 2016. Mitch Morse, who became a very good player, was a 70. But I guess my point is just that when it comes to fixing immediate needs, when you expect a second-round tight end to be Jordan Reed, or when you expect your first-round pick to be Travis Frederick, there is always the chance that there's a lot of work that needs to be done for that player to reach their highest end potential. And when it comes to how much they helped Kirk Cousins, the answer is it has the potential to have helped Kirk Cousins a lot. Because if you subtract, Elflein, we know it wasn't entirely his fault because of his situation, but he was the worst center in the NFL last year with Pro Football Focus numbers. And if you cut in half the pressures that he had and even give below average play, not the 29th ranked out of 29 who qualified, but instead the 15th, then you've taken a big step forward. And with Irv Smith, instead of replacing Tyler Conklin with Irv Smith, you're really trying to replace Laquan Treadwell as a guy.
Number 3 pass catcher.
He's basically a number 3 receiver because this guy can't really block. So he has to be a number 3 receiving or number 4 receiving option, assuming that Kyle Rudolph is still here. And from that perspective, when Kirk Cousins was throwing at Laquan Treadwell, his rating last year was an 80.3. He was basically like, who would that be? Chad Henne when he was throwing at Laquan Treadwell. And when he was throwing at anybody else, he had a rating well over 100.
I'm going to give Kirk the benefit of the doubt there that was not his fault, that his rating dipped that low.
Well, no, that's exactly my point, is that when he was throwing at Stephon Diggs, I've got the numbers here exactly. When he was throwing at Stephon Diggs, it was 107. At Thielen, 115. At Rudolph, 113. And Treadwell, 80.
But that's a product of the fact that Kirk is going to throw the ball where the ball's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm. So that's where Irv Smith could be a big help.
Yes.
Could be. Potentially could be. But who knows?
But they had no choice here. Like this was their player procurement period, and that's the end of the story. In March, you couldn't go out and sign guys.
No, because you made defense a priority in free agency, which led to offense being the priority in the draft.
Right, but
I don't agree with you. Couldn't have signed guys. Well, they could have if they wanted to.
But the day
they had options.
But the parameters for this franchise changed completely the day that Cousins was signed. The day that Cousins was signed, you forfeited the luxury that you had in this town as the Vikings for so long of having cap room.
Mm-hmm.
And so your choices were very specific. Very specific. And that's why I think it's very intriguing that when Barr said, I want to come back, that they said absolutely yes. Because that was one where you could have said, Anthony, we're sorry, but we can't do it. You didn't. You chose to bring him back. And so you painted yourself into a corner that left Thursday, Friday, and Saturday as your 3 days to at least try here. And Coller, if you're right, if these guys don't pan out, people get fired. That's going to be it.
So here's what I want to know from you two. Last year, I'll give you the rankings where the Vikings were in expected points added in running and passing. This allows me to figure out how many more points we expect them to score. They ranked 22nd in passing, and in rushing, they were 29th. So that takes the expected points on a particular play, how many they actually score, and 22nd and 29th, rushing, passing first, then rushing. Tell me where you guys think the Vikings will rank in passing and rushing next season.
Courtney, you want to
go
first?
And then we'll figure out how many more points that they would score if they ranked where you think they would. Let's do this. Under the scenario that Garrett Bradbury and Irv Smith are good, not all pro, but they're what we think they'll be.
Okay.
Where will they rank?
So I'm going to start with the run game here. I think you just read the stats. It was 27th in rushes per game. and then 30th in rushing yards per game.
And
So
29th in expected points added.
So what did we know about the top 4 teams in the Super Bowl? Top 4 offenses in the NFL scored a lot of points. We're able to keep up with that. And that's something that the Vikings just struggled with last year. They just couldn't score enough. The first down percentage was just, even through like the time that John DeFilippo was there, and then even the last 3 weeks of the season, didn't change that much. The team just struggled to move the ball.
Yep.
So where I think they're going to rank in the run game, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than 30th, but I probably wouldn't put it past maybe like 20th, maybe 19th, just because I think that it's going to take some time for this. If we're hedging everything on scheme being the ultimate fixer here, like you have the players to run it now, you have athletic linemen who are all the zone scheme type fits. That's great and everything. Can Dalvin Cook stay healthy? What are you going to do with Alexander Mattison? I think it's Mattison.
Do you say it Mattison?
Well, it's 2 T's, not Madison.
I think you just say it Madison.
Okay, let's go.
As
Mattison.
a Matt, I think I have authority here, and I
right.
think you just say
Madison.
Madison.
It comes out like a D.
It does. But there are ways. that was
Trying not to have a Michael Scott moment here.
Anyways,
Don't do it. Be
That's
mature.
what she said.
Be mature.
Couldn't help it.
You couldn't do it.
Couldn't help it.
Sorry, Courtney. I'd like to apologize.
It's okay.
She's used to it.
So the Vikings, they need a better offensive lineman to be able to run the ball more effectively. And if they're going to move up into at least like the upper half of the NFL in rushing attempts per game and yards per game and points scored that way, I think that it has to come at the benefit of what you did in the draft. And you went all run game all the time, first 4 rounds. As far as it goes with the passing game, where did you say they were ranked?
22nd.
I would expect that to jump a little bit. I really do think that with Irv Smith, they haven't had an F tight end. They haven't had somebody that can move around the field and they can manipulate while having, running a lot of 12 personnel. I mean, I'm not saying that this has the potential of being, given both of their skill sets, if you're just looking at it on paper, what Philly did in 2016, the Super Bowl year, is exactly what John DeFilippo wanted to do here last year. It was a strength that he wanted to bring here. He talked about it all offseason. He wanted an F tight end last year. He didn't have one. They had a chance to go get Tyler Higbee and make him one in the draft via a trade. Didn't happen. You saw what happened with the tight end usage. Kyle Rudolph was cranky about it. He did not like it. He publicly voiced that he didn't feel like he was being used the correct way because he was used to max protect all the time. Now you have a chance to have 2 dynamic tight ends with 2 very different skill sets, aid in the passing game in ways that we just haven't seen. So I'd expect that to jump up maybe to be like a top 12 passing offense.
Is Kyle here then?
Yes, in my mind, I'm saying that he's obviously here because
that becomes imperative that he's here.
Oh, absolutely.
In what you're saying,
absolutely.
Which I'm not sure of yet.
I'm not sure of either, but that for that scenario in which I talk about, it's only if Kyle Rudolph's here.
So the rushing game, I think, goes from 29th to approximately 18th. I think it does jump up because it's going to be utilized in a smarter way, which becomes important here. And the passing game, I think, goes from 22nd to approximately 14th. But this all goes back to one guy, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not Cousins.
No.
It's Kubiak.
Yep.
It's Kubiak and his system. And what does he do? Because the Vikings, unfortunately, in 2018, did not marry the quarterback to the coordinator successfully or wisely. So I do believe that this conversation really relies on the shoulders of one person. And ultimately, on the field, that's Cousins. But off Coller, it's Kubiak.
I'm doing math here. Because I'm trying to figure out how many more points you guys actually think the Vikings are going to score after this draft. And you guys are pretty close on this. Courtney is a little more enthusiastic. So if we just use the expected points added numbers and they jump to the rankings that you guys have them at, assuming the teams score at the same rate as they did last year. Courtney, you have them scoring 87 more points, and Judd, you have them scoring 60 more points. So now, as I go look at the total points, last year the Vikings were 19th and scored 360 points. So if they jump by 87, they will be a top 10 offense. Falcons scored 414 points last year, so they'll be in that range of just barely into the top 10.
I don't think that's far-fetched. I really don't. I mean, all of these draft picks with an offensive focus, you're making them because you think you need to score more points to be competitive. So I don't see a reason why that. I don't know. I'd have to go and I guess look at everybody else's draft class to see who else could be in that same range, but I think that that's realistic.
I will say that starting from day one of camp, the positive thing is this is going to make sense now. I have no idea if it's going to work. I have no idea if these kids are going to step in and be immediately successful. But I think there was a big time disconnect that we saw eventually last year in saying, what exactly are you trying to accomplish here? And unfortunately, the head coach said the same thing, which is never a good thing. I think that what you will see from the day they start their camps, though, is that the system is going to make sense. So at the very least, as a starting point, you're giving yourself a chance, which in 2018 you really didn't do.